On public and religious holidays, the adjacent minbar is climbed by the mosque's spiritual leader, the imam, in order that everyone can hear him. He stands with his back towards the crowd, facing the mihrab. The circular form of the prayer corner ensures the voice of the imam is thrown out loud and clear back into the room. Mosques do not only serve the purpose of prayer, they are equally important as a place where the social life of the community plays its role. Apart from the glorious prayer room, there are also separate community rooms, especially in old mosques where families spend their spare time talking and worshiping together. Fountains and courtyards are found in almost every mosque, as they have always been part of a mosque's design. Islamic architecture is derived very much from sunnier climates in the globe, and therefore uses a historic interplay between light and dark, shadow and sun. When it grew dark outside, light glowed from an array of lamps with artistically designed cutouts and slits. Chains of night lights wind around mosques at sunset and give a warm, relaxing atmosphere. Throughout all the walls and windows of the mosques, you will not find any pictures of religious themes, unlike in Christian churches. There is no depiction of human figures in the Islamic religion, nor images of the Prophet. Instead, you find quotations from the Quran and calligrams, sayings, and prayers, which decorate the walls of God's house. The highest point of the mosque is often decorated with cupolas, with huge, colorful ornaments and arabesques, extending from over the ceilings all the way down to the floor. Cutting through the narrow, thronging streets like a deep ravine, this passageway runs towards the center of Egypt's capital, passing flats, houses, and buildings from all decades of the past century as it merges into the skyline of Cairo. Cairo lies on the right side of the Nile and at the mouth of the fan-shaped Nile River Delta. In Egyptian, the city is called Al-Qahira, meaning the victorious. From being a small stronghold, Cairo grew to being the capital of Egypt and the largest city on the African continent. Taking in the magnificent skyline of the city, one can see Cairo's multitude of minarets and mosques, together with the countless tops of skyscrapers. It is a clash between culture, religion, and a modern lifestyle. The Nile crosses the city like a lifeline. Since Cairo's foundation, the river is an absolute necessity. In addition to the water transport, Cairo has wide roads and an infrastructure that guarantees its modernity and prosperity. Hundreds of thousands travel every day from the suburbs and outskirts to the center of the capital. Perhaps due to the vast amount of people commuting in and out of the city, Cairo has developed a very flexible attitude to traffic regulations. Let's move away from the bustling crowds on the street into the tightness of the alleys. The fascinating bazaar offers goods from all over the country. Some of the shops seem tiny, but each merchant is absolutely convinced of their own products and can delve into the stock, producing incredible treasures like magic. Apart from the array of spices, herbs, and garments, the bazaar also offers more precious items. Some sellers offer bowls and plates made from metal or slate, decorated with ancient calligraphy. Other clever merchants have transformed their stores to make them look like shops on the high street. Fresh produce like meat, fruit, and vegetables are displayed and judged by the critical customers. The choices on the market are vast, and prices can differ wildly from store to store, every store, often with the written prices having no substance at all. Here in the gigantic Bazaar of Cairo, the principle of bargaining rules. Haggling or bargaining can take minutes, but if it's about a valuable piece, it could take much longer. It's pretty much taken as an insult if a customer accepts the first price the seller offers them. Bargaining is a kind of ritual here, as much a part of the sale as the payment. Herbs are the most popular product. Over hundreds of years, herb and silk stalls exported their exotic powders to various European countries. Today, herbs and herbal mixtures are prepared in various small warehouses. The products are milled to begin with. The powder that comes out of the mill is still not fine and aromatic enough to be sold immediately. The powder then needs to be sieved, reworked, and sieved again until it is absolutely pure. It will then arrive in huge bags at the market. Outside the city center is a camel market. This traditional ancient market was much more important during the time when caravans traveled through the desert. Many caravans started out in Cairo to travel towards Mecca. The route from Cairo was known as the safest for the believers. Although the traditional routes to Mecca are not in use anymore, the camel market still is very busy today. Overseers watch that the camels stay in their places, close to their sellers. There are many traders here too, so no animals are mixed up. The camels are marked with colors. These camels have been bought and are leaving the camel market for their new home. We're back in Cairo at the Egyptian Museum. It was built in the year 1900 to save the valuable art treasures gleaned from thousands of years of tomb robberies. This museum's collection is considered to be the largest in the world and includes countless artifacts belonging to Egyptian emperors. But not every king of Egypt was a pharaoh. Only in the 17th dynasty, about 1,700 years ago, were Egyptian kings given the title pharaoh. Standing out from the many mummies, the most famous exhibit is the golden death mask of the legendary young king Tutankhamun. This mask consists of 11 kilos of pure gold. What we know about the kings of ancient Egypt comes mainly from tombs and buildings built by the pharaoh in their honor. Unbeknown to the many visitors and followers of Egyptian culture, the oldest evidence of the dynasty lies not hundreds of miles from the heart of the city, but right here at the gates of Cairo. From the Second Dynasty onwards, the suburb of Saqqara was used as burial place for all the Egyptian pharaohs and kings. Two more infamous temple complexes of pharaoh dynasties are located here at the river bend of the Nile: Karnak and Luxor. The most extensive information about Egypt's gods can be found in these huge temple complexes. The largest is the temple city Karnak. Karnak's history goes as far back as 2000 BC. On its vast ground are not only temples for gods, but also for pharaohs, kings, and very often their wives. The biggest temples are for the king of gods Amun-Re, the god of war Mont, and the goddess Mut. Religion played a leading role in ancient Egypt. The belief in the ubiquity of the gods was mirrored in the pharaoh, who was seen as the son of the sun god Re. The Egyptian sky, depicting hundreds of gods, was the largest in history. Benevolent gods like the sun god Re and the god of creation Atum stood opposite the gods of destruction like Set and Apophis. In Karnak is also the largest finished obelisk, standing 90 feet high. Obelisks were seen as the symbol of the rays of the sun god Re, and therefore had huge religious significance. Obelisks were always carved from a single piece of rock, but the finished obelisk could not contain any blemishes or cracks. If a defect was found during the carving, the work was ceased immediately and abandoned. Leading from the temple of Amun used to be an alleyway adorned with countless sphinxes leading up to the legendary temple complex of Luxor. This complex was the annual setting for the Opet festival. On this festival, statues of the gods Amun, Mut, and Khans were taken by boat-like chariots on a procession from Karnak through to the yards and the columned halls onto the road to Luxor. We have learned that this ceremony and strenuous ritual was performed to legitimize the emperor and therefore the maintenance of the Ma'at, the ancient Egyptian world order. The principal belief of the Egyptian era was that this order could only exist through the pharaoh and his execution of rituals like the Opet festival. This was the only way to prevent chaos and the destruction of their mighty empire. Close to the Nile Delta lies the dead city Saqqara. Some of these burial tombs are over 5,000 years old. The name Saqqara is probably a derivation of the name of the god of death, Sokar. He featured in an incredible ritual in which mummies would lose their souls. Saqqara became a burial ground so early in Egypt's history, probably due to its close proximity to Memphis, the original capital of Egypt, just a few miles from here. Here we can see, inside the tomb of Teti, a wall with astounding hieroglyphics. These scripts were probably never finished, as Teti died unexpectedly. The hieroglyphics were meant to lead the king to the realm of the dead. Originally in Saqqara, these murals, still found in many tombs today, used to be drawn on the outside, but gradually they were transferred inside to protect them from the corrosive weather and sandstorms. Next to the ruined chapels rises the Pyramid of Djoser. It represents the belief of life after death and has suffered the ravages of time. On the highest point over the complex stands the oldest witness to the ancient world. There are about 80 pyramids remaining throughout Egypt. The most famous ones are found in Giza, but many more are found in other necropolises around the Nile Delta. Not all of the pyramids were designed to be burial grounds. Some were used as fake graves or cultural palaces. The Djoser Pyramid is one of the first pyramids in Egypt. 4,700 years ago, it was built by the legendary architect Imhotep. The pyramid has 6 steps and is 180 feet high. The form of the pyramid is based on the first mastaba. It consisted of only one stone step. In time, more and more mastabas were built on top of each other, and this is how the first step pyramids evolved. Although from the outside these pyramids differ from the Great Pyramids of Giza, inside all pyramids have these step forms. They only get their comparatively smooth surface from the amount of steps and the type of cladding. Not all finished pyramids are free from defects. The Meidum Pyramid is barely recognizable as a pyramid. It looks more like a multi-level tower. The visible remains are just the core of the old pyramid. Large parts of this pile of rubble used to be part of this pyramid. The Bend Pyramid is the oldest and also the strangest pyramid found in Egypt. Its most obvious feature is the huge bend halfway up. This may be due to problems with stability during the building phase. The Red Pyramid is also an astounding structure. Like the Bend Pyramid, it was built by King Snofru. As its name indicates, it is characterized by its red coloring. The builders learnt from their experience with the Bend Pyramid and were able to build the Red Pyramid without defect, making it 600 feet high. The most famous and arguably some of the most incredible formations of the Egyptian style are the pyramids of Giza. They are the only ancient wonders of the world not affected by natural catastrophes. Only a few miles outside Cairo, they are still the most favored destinations for tourists all over the world, as much today as 100 years ago. Here, visitors stand with amazement in front of the pyramids of Merenninos, Khephren, and Cheops. The internal structure of one pyramid could be totally different to another. At the Cheops pyramid, the burial chamber is in the center of the building. Many people claim that the path inside is part of a dark, branched labyrinth, which can only be navigated by the workers who built the pyramid. The curse of the pharaoh is also a legend. This can be said to be confirmed by the empty tomb inside the chamber. Even today, there are many questions surrounding the erection of these stone colossuses. Despite the fact that Egyptians knew of the wheel in their time, all of the heavy stones, often over a ton, were transported without carts or similar transport. The Cheops Pyramid, standing at its 350 feet, is the highest building around. Even though this colossal pyramid seems like a wonder in itself, the real wonder was supposed to have happened during the reign of Cheops. A man named Dedi was brought before the king and was able to reattach the head of a dead goose onto its body, making it live again. As a reward, the magician was promised a life of luxury. Stories like this allow archaeologists to examine the culture, beliefs, and intellect of ancient Egypt. The camels wait patiently in the hot desert sand. Although there are plenty of comfortable vehicles which now transport tourists effortlessly to the pyramid sites, camels are still the most popular form of transport. There can be no question. Approaching the pyramids on the back of a swinging ship of the desert. Close to the monumental structures rises another part of Egypt's legacy, the Sphinx. For over 4,000 years, as long as Egypt has existed, the mighty Sphinx has stared into the desert. There are many secrets and legends whispered even today. It is unclear whether it was built as a guardian for a tomb or as a portrait of a king. The most intriguing mystery is perhaps its broken nose. The most common assumption was that the cannons of Napoleon on his Africa crusade destroyed it, but this was proven wrong. It is more likely that a fanatical iconoclast broke off the nose to make a stand against religion or culture. So, since then, the Sphinx watches the burial grounds of the pharaohs without its nose. 3,000 miles further south of Giza are the temples of Abu Simbel, carved out of stone. Originally, the temple complex of Abu Simbel was located where the Nasser Barrier Lake is today. About 50 years ago, the Aswan Barrier Lake was built and threatened to destroy Abu Simbel. In a worldwide campaign, the whole complex was removed, including the original rock, and rebuilt around 600 feet further down the site. Carved in stone, the imperious wife of the pharaoh, Ramses, Nefertari, overlooks the Nile. This temple was built in her honor. At the entrance are two figures of Ramses II. Both the married couple's statues are the same height. This is a symbol of love from Ramses. Usually, the wife of a king has a lower status than the king himself. The temple is not just dedicated to Nefertari, but also to the goddess Hathor. This is emphasized by the Hathor columns inside the temple, which have the faces of the goddess. The center of Abu Simbel is not the temple of Nefertari, but the great temple of Ramses II. His burial place is about 500 feet away from his wife's. Every great temple of ancient Egypt has a huge main entrance. It is called a pylon. At Abu Simbel, the rock itself is the entrance gate. On the edge of the gate are 4 seated statues. Each statue represents Ramses himself. These self-portraits show Ramses' desire to be the same as the gods. This can also be read on the inscriptions on the statues, on which he is described as the son of all emperors, lover of Amun and Atum, and emperor of both countries, Upper and Lower Egypt. Many halls with countless inscriptions and statues of gods are carved into the rock. In one of the halls is a relief that shows scenes of the life of the pharaoh. In the last room of the temple, the sanctuary, are statues of the gods Ta, Amun-Re, Re-Harakti, and in the middle, Ramses himself. From the amazing temple complex of Abu Simbel, we are now on our way to a valley that some might say is even more legendary. The twin statues of the Memnon Colossus, guard the street leading to the tomb of the emperors which bears its name, the Valley of the Kings. Back in time, it is said the statues gave out mysterious sounds at dawn. The Valley of the Kings is close to the temple complexes of Karnak and Luxor on the other side of the River Nile. As at Saqqara, this valley contains a multitude of tombs of pharaohs and kings lined up next to each other. Surrounded by mountains and hills, the burial grounds are spread right across the vast valley. Next to this, in the south, lies the Valley of the Queens. These are similar tombs housing the wives of the kings and many senior dignitaries and officials of Egyptian courts. Here, the numerous tombs look unimpressive and seem to merge with the desert sand and dunes. These tombs' plain appearance may have been a ruse to deter thieves, because we now know inside these graves were decorations of the highest order. Not far from the Valley of the Queens is the enormous temple dedicated to Hatshepsut. She was one of the few queens of Egypt who reigned by herself. During her dynasty, many innovative ideas were expounded in architecture and design, and her era is characterized by an exceptionally long period of peace. Her temple is architecturally very different to other temples from the same period. Among its outstanding features are the columned halls that replace the traditional mighty entrance gates. Also, these open out onto vast terraces, giving an affable, friendly, open impression, in contrast to the old, dark, and tightly constructed temples of the pharaohs. The balcony that leads over 2 floors contains inscriptions about the life of Hatshepsut. In the right wing are drawings depicting the royal birth of the queen. This is therefore called the birth hall. In another hall are drawings about an expedition to a wealthy country which has great treasures such as gold, ebony, and myrrh. Like many other burial places, the grave of Hatshepsut wasn't only dedicated to the queen, but also to some gods, which is why there are chapels and temples with murals in honor of the gods Anubis and Hathor. Now we are leaving the death temple of the queen and making our way back to the Valley of the Kings. Despite all precautions, the graves of this infamous valley have been victims of countless grave robbers. And even after detailed explorations and additional digs, the looting decreased only a little. In 1922, the biggest find in the history of the valley was made: the grave of Tutankhamun. Because the entrance of the grave was buried for a long time down a long passage, all the treasures of the pharaoh remained untouched, as well as the legendary golden death mask. The graves of the pharaohs have always fascinated local people. But there are no traces or records of the ancient workers or of ordinary citizens of Egypt, with one exception: the Deir el-Medina, which is a workers' village in the Valley of the Kings. Here there used to live artists and workers who built and painted the graves and artifacts. Many shards have been found between the ruins, often depicting writing called ostraka. These testaments were a sensational source of information about the lives of the ordinary people in ancient Egypt. In the village, we have found not only remains of houses, but also of little chapels and graveyards. Sometimes the quality of the mural paintings of these graves can match even the more famous paintings in the graves of the pharaohs themselves. Not far from the Valley of the Kings, there is the Ramesseum. The temple was not always heavily damaged like today. Originally, it looked more like a fortress than a cult site in honor of Ramses II. Now, only a few high walls remain as evidence of the military character of this funerary temple. Similar to the temples of Abu Simbel, there are many statues of Ramses II carved into the rock. Also, part of the grave, there was apparently a holy lake and further outbuildings. But here time has done more damage than to other sites. This can be clearly seen on degraded pillars or on the remains of pharaoh statues. Egypt. Thousands of years of ancient history. Scores of events and colossal evidence of human accomplishments. Here are the last wonders of the world, the remaining ruins of a bygone era of the kings of the desert. The lights of the big cities are shining over the same ground where once miles of processing worshippers prostrated themselves before the pharaoh. Now over the land of the pharaohs, over the scorching deserts, mosques, and sprawling metropolises that comprise modern Egypt, the sun finally sets behind the impressive pyramids, leaving us once again